All right, so next up we got Gerardo Urias. Is that how you say it, Gerardo?
Urias.
Urias. And yeah, he's a shaman, breathwork facilitator, author of the book Taking Back My Mind, My Journey Out of Depression with Psilocybin Mushrooms. On the note of breathwork, one of the things, he looks like he's still getting set up over there, so I'll share this. I thought it was crazy, like when you're at the whole like George Floyd, like I can't breathe stuff was going on. And like I already, knowing some of the weird wellness stuff that I know, I was like, people don't know how to breathe, which I thought was ironic. And then they're wearing a mask on top of it. So it's like, you're saying I can't breathe, you got a mask on. I was like, what are you talking about here? You're talking about Floyd or yourself, And then on top of that, there was, in the 2000s, early 2000s, all the Bush regime, like wars in the Middle East stuff, there were people that were on that side, like the liberals, were like saying that hijabs, the facial coverings for people in Islam, was oppressive, which, there's all sorts of stuff we could talk about that. But yeah, they were saying that that's oppressive, and then later, 20 years later, they're like, shut the fuck up, wear a mask. So I think that they like to mess with our heads to like jerk us around and like change our perceptions to the opposites, and they get off on it. There actually is a whole thing about that. So, are you about ready here?
Yep, ready.
All right, sweet. All right, so here we go. His talk is titled Taking. Okay, I think there's a typo. Taking Back My Mind is his talk. He will be talking about taking back his mind. All right, give it up to Gerardo, and then sign up for the mushroom ceremony if you want. You'll be doing that tomorrow, I believe, right?
No, that's Thursday.
Thursday. All right, here we go.
Workshop at 3.
You want mic stay or you want loose? And then one thing that could be helpful, I want to try and remind people, is that if you're doing the talk, try and repeat people's questions so it's recorded better on the audio and we know what's going on. Cheers.
My name is Gerardo Urias. 3 years ago, I was living the life of my dreams, living on the Caribbean in Mexico. I owned my own business. I was married to a beautiful woman. I was traveling a lot, spending most of my days on the beach. Life was just incredible. It was epic. And then life took a major turn. I got divorced. My dad died right after we separated. I was going deaf. I had some major health issues. I ended up losing my business, my money, my home, and along with everything that was dear to me, my desire to live. The world grew darker every day for 10 months until I reached the brink of suicide.
I didn't know how to get out of it. It was going straight towards, a very bad end. There was really nothing I could do to get out. I tried therapy, I tried antidepressants, I tried everything. One day, my brother suggested magic mushrooms for depression, and I didn't think it would work. Within about an hour of eating the mushrooms, I literally felt the depression dissipate, dissolve, and vanish. Started ramping up, and I would walk on the pier, everything started slowing down, and I just noticed that I felt good. And then all of a sudden, it was wow, it was just magical. How could you take me from one day where I just wanted to kill myself to the next day being happy? That sparked my rapid and dramatic recovery that began a transformative, magical 2-year journey that eventually led me to the majestic mountains of southern Oaxaca in Mexico. It's my hope to bring you on this journey with me by telling you a story of courage, adversity, resilience, family, love, and hope. By sharing my story, and I hope to raise awareness for these life-saving plant medicines, practices, and philosophies that keep you thriving every day. It's unreal the power these mushrooms hold. What they did that day was open my eyes to the reality that I had closed off, to my mind, and make me fall in love with life again. Just like that. It was insane. It's time to reawaken that incredible inner power. It's time to reconnect with nature. It's time to evolve.
And we try to do, and then how's our bike too?
So that's a documentary film that I've been working on since quite a few years to raise awareness. It documents my journey of depression as medicine to raise awareness for this extremely powerful modalities and medicines. So before I get into it, who was up today? Any tips? Little side? Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that was incredible. I mean, not only did we get to watch a beautiful sunrise in this magical place into eclipse too to start the days. It was incredible. What's that? Yes, I still believe, yeah, when the tried cut them.
That was so much more. The eclipses are so powerful, and then we all know, right? That's why we're here. It was an eclipse that created all of this. Right? 2 years ago, the world hit the nothing on. The disruption of the sunlight, of the photons for those few minutes, manifesting into this, which is how it works, how scared about feelings of energy. We start as photons that like manifest into this difficult winds and eclipses. They have always been so extremely powerful as all photons. When I heard 2 years ago that there was an eclipse going to be passing to Mazatlan, I had never seen a total eclipse, and so I really wanted to, and I could live Oaxaca. And so I heard about it, and I thought I didn't want to go. So I took a look at the path of totality, and I saw that the first place on land that the eclipse was going to touch down on was in Oaxaca, in Sinaloa, which is my dad's birthplace. And I looked closer, and the first neighborhood, the first barrio where it touched land is called Urias, which happens to be our last name. Then I looked closer, and I saw the time of totality is 4 minutes and 20 seconds long. Well, that means significant, it was in 420, it was 5 minutes, all right. But on this day, it was much different, much more significant, because I passed away at 420, April 20, 2017, which is one of the main reasons that I fell into deep depression, which the mushrooms irradiated me from almost a year war. And so I just thought, whoa, this is so cool. I had to be there to meet it. Didn't know how, because it was broke, as or times, but I just prayed and just sourced and architecture place where there's somehow. Shortly after that, I connected with Lexa somehow, and it happened. And so for those of you who were there, wow, it was like the most magical week. During the eclipse, I felt my dad's, okay, so he passed away on 4/20. I remember when he passed away, watching the sun set over the ocean, that immediately, of course, I just passed away, so and with him. I remember watching the sun and thinking, getting a very tangible and deep, heavy feeling that he was the sun, because he was the biggest sun worshiper. Like he was dark. He was always in the sun. He never bought this stuff that the sun was bad. He always knew the sun was energy. No more sunscreen there. Biggest sun worshiper. And my whole life, watching him was just always in the sun. I remember thinking that he is the sun, or he's in the sun, and he's going away for a while, but he'll be back. Just like the sun comes back there. It's this feeling. So to me, this eclipse was his return. So I happened. So I made it. And during the eclipse, right when it started, I felt this spirit, I'll shit you not, enter my body, and we merged consciousness for a brief moment. That's happened a few times in my life since I started this shaman app. I'll talk about that. I get off in a bit. But that was his return, and it was the most powerful of them. Just, it's hard to get any words out how powerful that is. So anyway, so at that festival, I gave a talk as well, workshop, and I drew an analogy between total solar eclipses and manifestation.
Extremely did that.
In the same way that the sun temporarily blocks the moon temporarily blocks the sunlight, allowing us to see the stars that are always there. It's just overshadowed by sunlight. In the same way, psychedelics work to temporarily dissolve our ego, so that we can experience these deeper parts of ourself that are buried in our subconscious, that are really running the show and really running who we are and our identity. Right? And that is the power of how these things work. So that's why I'm here as well. It's just such an incredible week that I will always see Port of Fan for life. And so when I started, right before that, I want to ask, before I talk about the book journey and all that, raise your hand if you know someone or you yourself are suffering with depression, PTSD, addiction to anything, with mental health illness of any kind. Know anybody who hurts you? And those people, that's right. So we have a problem. We know we've had a problem for a while. The good news is, it's on this documentary trailer, that we have the stations. We always have the planks. one of the reasons we have this mental health epidemic is because we don't use the plants as society can get political reasons for that. So when this liberation happened, and on December 22nd, 2017 is when I ate the mushrooms that liberated this really suicidal depression influenza for 10 months since my father passed away with a divorce about this up. I would not be alive without a doubt if it wasn't for this states. So I ate some mushrooms and took a walk on the beach with my brother, and the depression just vanished his heart. And I was actually kind of confused that the following days I felt good. And so it was confusing because every day was dreaded, night hours at night, and then just a horribly. It was just, if we've been in depression, you know what I'm talking about. There's just no light at the end of the tunnel. So I was confused because I was numb. And 3 days went by, and I was kind of waiting for the depression to return. It didn't. Then 3 days later, on Christmas Day, and I didn't even think about any of this, the coincidences in the dates. On Christmas Day, I just lit up and I knew I was healed, and I immediately decided that I had to share this. This could not, be kept a secret. So I immediately decided to start my book. Again, the coincidences of a date on December 20th, and that was the winter solstice, which is... Check that again. I said cancel the winter solstice music. So the winter solstice is, of course, the shortest day of the year, symbolic of new beginnings throughout right. And then the 25th, and then the resurrection of the year. That's how it all happened. It's just so incredible magic. So I started writing the book. This was in 2018, before this psychedelic renaissance we're in had started with. It wasn't until a few months after I started writing my book that Michael Pollan published How to Take Your Mind. That's the book that really kind of put it on the map. So I felt I really had to prove the science. And I was not spiritual or religious then, because of growing up in a religious household, pushing religion on you, spirituality, all of that just left a bad taste in my mouth. I was hardcore atheist in that. So very science-based. So I dove into the science, dove into the research of what happened in those 4 hours that it just healed. And so, my book is heavily science-based. The reduction of the default mode network, if we're familiar with these terms, default mode network is what creates our ego, our sense of identity. It's pretty advanced in science now, especially since that, MRIs and brain scans can see what happens. And so that network reduces the blood flow activity, which at the same time, when that creates a illusion of separation, it's not just a vacuum. That's why you feel connected to everything else, which is actually reality. We are connected to it. So it just removes the filter of that. Hence the feeling of connection to everything, connection to the entire universe. Lack of connection is the source of most mental illness, most depression, most addictions. A lot of studies on addiction, like Rat Park, where the rats only choose the cocaine water if they are alone, if they have a social environment. That's what I call Rat Park experiment. Rats on park. They did not choose the cocaine water. So connection is everything, because connection is the fabric of the universe. So things like that, when I dove into, okay, it makes sense logically. I'm going to put that in my book, and I'm going to really convince people because it's science, right? Our brain also becomes more globally connected. So our brain has different compartments, your visual cortex, your auditory system, and all that. It's normally compartmentalized, right? Have their job to do. And with the default mode network offline, the brain connects more globally, and different parts of your brain speak to each other, which is what causes us creates synesthesia, which is the mixing of senses, which is what sometimes on every journey you can taste colors, you can see sounds, things like that. These connections last, and new neurological connections are created from a heavy psychedelic experience, and microdosing is just kind of takes longer. But during a heavy psychedelic experience, there's that shuffling of the connections, and then those remain. Now the connections are, of course, what create our perception. So many times, and in clinical research, over 80-90% of people who go full in with healing these intractable depression and PTSD and everything, they come out a lot better, healed, because of different perspectives. So if you shake all that up, all the connections, it's kind of like pouring concrete, fresh concrete, and then it settles. So the connections settle, bringing you a new perspective. Many times in problems in our life, all we need is a new perspective. It really is all about perspective. So that's another sort of biological way that these things work. And there's so many biological ways that it works. So I filled the book up with a lot of science and, of course, my story. During the writing of the book, I started my Ascension workshops, which is what I do during the 3 o'clock. So it's a combination of a microdose, a little bit of movement, breathwork, meditation, and the synergy between all of that is so, so powerful because the breathwork itself unlocks endogenous TM teeth. You can. And so it is almost like having a really powerful psychedelic experience in a short time, half hour, controlled by the breath, so you're not stuck in that state, but it can really get you. So I started doing these workshops in San Diego. Became very popular. Then one day I had this spirit come through me, and I still was not spiritual. There was a force that came in and told me I had to go to Oaxaca to build a retreat. And I couldn't get off on me. So spoke to my team that we were doing the workshop. I was like, hey, you guys want to go to your retreat, mushroom retreat in Oaxaca? With gas ships. So 2 months later, I booked a one-way flight to Oaxaca, didn't know anybody. Just sure I was in Europe, just landed. Met one person after another, and within a week, I had met a medicine woman who inaugurated me as a shaman about a year later, and built our retreat there, and then we started doing more and more retreats, and now we are established essentially a retreat down there. This is the journey that took me into spirituality. This is where I saw, wow, there's a whole lot more going on than just biology and just science. The mountains where I work are the most powerful mountains for mushrooms in the world. I mean, it's all the mountains of Oaxaca. In the north, the more famous ones are the Mazatec and the Romasigna, or in the south, like the Zapotec tribe, which is same thing, different tribes, different places. But the spirit of the mushroom is extremely like them. And so what I've witnessed over the years there is far beyond what science can explain yet. Things like ancestors taking over your body, entities taking over people's bodies, speaking through them, real exorcisms, things that cannot be not denied that it's just they're quieting the default behavior. So much so that I started filming some of them for the documentary. So how do you, the way to prove these things exist? Cool. Ancestral healing is the most important healing that we could possibly do. We carry everything from our ancestors. Everything I bring in the mountains in this side of the shaman work, the Kurandela, everything has to do with what's in our body. We are just the current avatars of our entire dimension. Every memory, every experience, every thought that our ancestors ever had lives in cellular memory in the body. It's all passed forward like a zip file for evolution, so we all remember, we all forget the dangers of life. Right? And it's a very intricate system. And with ceremonies, I've seen this manifest out. Some of the ways how this worked in the research I did for the book, on the science side of it, and the therapy side of it, to deal with trauma, it involves our memory mechanism. And so a healthy brain that's free of trauma, which doesn't exist. Trauma is built into life for a reason. Trauma is actually built into it. We have a healthy memory reconsolidation system, okay? A reintegration system. A healthy brain, a healthy consolidation system, there's an experience and we process, we integrate it, and we forget it. The trauma does not integrate effectively, therefore remains stored in the body as procedural and emotional memory. Our memory works in two main ways. There's explicit memory and implicit memory. Explicit memory is semantic memory, which is symbolism, language, and things that we make sense of the world. And there's episodic memory, which is autobiographical memory, which is really the equivalent of the memory, right? The implicit memory carries procedural memory, which is subconscious, and emotional memory, how I felt, right? That's kind of the structure of how the memory works. And then the memory is responsible for storing whether we are safe or not. So all of our ancestors have the same brain mechanism. And so these traumas come in, and then the traumas shuffle down into the procedural memory. You know, procedural memory is like brushing your teeth. You don't have to think of it. The memory is inherent. All right, let's not go anymore. It's right here. That's what's in our ancestors. That's not going in. That gets passed forward. It passed forward and passed forward. So when we use these medicines in the ceremonial way, now mind you, I do ceremonies all over. Just in California, you do electric ceremonies. For some reason, we don't tap into the ancestry elsewhere as we do. I believe it's the place, it's the mountains, it's the work, it's the origin. It's something that science can't describe. But the level of the depthness of ancestry and tap into is a really mind-boggling. So
He said that.
science. So the goal of any therapy, and we would use an extremely powerful tool, psychedelics, is to unlearn the body's response to trauma and retrain that memory consolidation system. That's how we break the cycle. And then we can pass that forward. If it doesn't heal, we will pass it forward because we're not thinking about it. And then your offspring will get it, and theirs and theirs. And so that is our work here, is to heal the systems. Again, we are the sum total of our entire ancestry, just current, present avatars. We're like the representatives. So a few examples of this. Was a client that I had last year sometime, and didn't have any health issues. During the ceremony, he immediately started coughing a lot, coughing and dry heaving and convulsing and really, really heavy movements and heavy convulsions, dry purging throughout the whole process, but especially the specific cough. I talked about it afterwards. He told me that his grandmother had a lung illness that she died from, and that she was there with him, and she entered his body, and he was like processing that illness out of her, and in the same process, she was healing his current issues, which was a lot of depression, anxiety, really, really cried things as in stress, and so they were healing together in his experience. Which again is reality, is how it works, because we are connecting. There is no separation. We are them, and they are all us. And we also had a small slave in the form of his experience, and it turns out history with slaves in his lineage. So it untapped those memories, bringing that out of the subconscious and into his experience, and then he ended up healing. In another ceremony that I done, very similar, this person's grandmother took over her body, and this one was interesting because there was like either half gram or a gram was not of her low dose, very small amount, but the energy behind the reason she was there, it was divine intervention. Same thing, dry heaving, coughing, and then her voice changed, her eyes changed, her face changed, her demeanor changed, and her grandmother was speaking through her, telling her, toxicity is not love, abuse is not love, over and over and over and over for the tumors. And this came was sort of break this pattern of being attracted to toxic relationships. And psychologically, we do that because it's familiar. So you rank the toxic relationship because, oh, okay, so I just kind of thinks, oh, that's safe, that's like. Through this process, it was well, and now he's a different person finding healthy relationships. Okay, and you know, I'm watching this, and everything changed. So this was not her. You know. Another case study I had really powerful was this person who had a lot of ancestral trauma. Same thing happened. Ancestors took over the body. Violent movements, a lot of drug eating. Started speaking in different languages, and language regressed to primitive sounds, and then was speaking a language before language existed, grunts and pre-human range. 2 ceremonies that are afterwards. What it turned out was that all of the atrocities and all of the horrible things that happened in the lineage, the ancestors they just wanted to be acknowledged and loved and heard. And they were speaking through him, finally speaking up about what happened to them. Hours and hours. After that, healed. He was very, very bad in a very bad situation. Healed and now is in the best super healthy substance, very subtle, being subtle. And another one, I had a woman come, and the whole ceremony was moving the body like a snake, like on the ground, like a snake. Big snake movements. Very powerful. It's trying to protect the neck of it. Really wasn't doing it herself. I asked, does this feel like it's you? Are you doing this or no? Does it feel like it's spirit? Yes. Said the spirit of Aster onto this bit. Okay, she continued. The whole time, after she talked about it, she said that a giant green snake entered her left leg, took over her body. So he's doing the movement. What's crazy is on my way to this, or Tepoztlan, I always start with Tepoztlan. On my way there, I was a little bit hungry. It's been one hour, this food, so I deviated to the kitchen, grabbed my tea. It deviated about 5 minutes. I got to the ceremony in a rush. I was on the way. And on my way, I almost stepped on a green snake. I was crossing my path. The only time I'd ever seen a snake on our property, and be like, ever. So, right. So then, you know, we were talking about it. She said, well, Kundalini, sometimes feel a little awakening, and it was somewhat similar. Could be that. But then high expense. So, the point is, there's a huge spiritual side to these things. There always has been, but always has been. It is the divine connection to source. It is where moves that filtered the ego. The implications that our ancestral traumas have permeate every area of our life. There are what are called trauma bonds and trauma entanglements, terms. And it is the web of trauma that keeps us together, especially in family dynamics. My very first ayahuasca ceremony was several years ago, and in that ceremony was very intense, very heavy. And I saw a giant spider, a giant translucent spider, so I knew it wasn't a real spider. It was clearly a spider, and it was crawling on the ones. And I looked to see if anybody else saw it, you know, during results, rubies, and you know, because the stupid and had a big impact on him. So I talked to my friend after that, and he's very familiar with ayahuasca. She's a really smart person, therapist, said that on her podcast. She told me that what was happening, and she knows my family situation, family kind of splinter off because I don't know what to tell you. She told me that was showing me the web of trauma and trauma entanglements and how it was manifesting in my family. Has anybody had or known people who are kind of go on this freedom path and causes some ripples in family?
Yeah.
Okay, just as much as the previous question. Yeah, so there's a biological reason for that, and I learned a lot of this from her. This is pretty much now the main focus of my documentary, the next book I'm writing, because it is a prevalent issue, right? Very prevalent. But there's an explanation, there is a biological basis for it, and there's a solution as well. And the biological basis, as she explained, is that we carry a sort of inherited family template deep in our DNA, designed specifically to keep the tribe together at all costs. Because throughout our existence, we needed tribe. You wouldn't make it very far on the road. You know, traditionally and historically, if one person leaves the tribe, they're done. Either out alone in nature, or the tribe turns on them and kills them because now they're a threat. This is at the deepest core of our survival mechanism. It is the same way today, which is why there are issues. The way we see other people is we can never know somebody 100% of who they are. We cannot get into their head. What we do subconsciously is we observe them and we write a narrative about who they are, which is why families are the most difficult, because they have the longest running narrative. So when you change drastically, it messes up the narrative. You know, it breaks the narrative, and then that's that threat. Subconsciously, you're not aware of this. If that's a threat, and then they start alienate, they start to attack, they start to do all these things, right? And so that's what's happening, especially when it gets into messy situations where, you know, we're trying to discredit you and things like that. It's that same biology happening. If it was 1,000 years ago, then the tribe would just trail on and kill them. You can't do that, there's laws in art. But trying to discredit is a way of trying to kill the way of survival during these little chits. So it manifests just in different ways. It was a reality, society and laws. And so that's why. That's why these things happen and found. So it's so imperative to go into the depths of our ancestry and to heal these things. And the good news about that, though, is it is like a web. Like everybody's in the web of trauma, and that's what keeps you together. And it's extremely difficult to escape it, as someone said that found out. Extremely difficult. But when one person does escape the web of trauma, it disrupts the web, just like the physical analogy, just a spider web. The web will start moving if there's movement. And then it starts shuffling things. And because you always are connected, the rest will eventually be able to free themselves as well. It's just generation, that into many generations. But it takes one person to start it. That's why we are known as the cycle breakers, the black sheep. Why the cycle breakers are so important, so important. And actually, I have a really beautiful poem I'm going to read by Bert Hellinger, the creator of family constellations. The so-called black sheep of the family are in fact hunters born of paths of liberation into the family tree. The members of a tree who do not conform to the norms or traditions of the family system. Those who since childhood have constantly sought to revolutionize beliefs go against the paths marked by family traditions. Those criticized, judged, and even rejected. These family members are usually called to free the tree of repetitive stories that frustrate entire generations. The black sheep, those who do not adapt, those who cry rebelliously, play a basic role within each family system. They unfold, repair, pick up, and create new branches in the family tree. Thanks to these members, trees renew their roots, its rebellion is fertile soil, its madness is water that nourishes, its stubbornness is new air, its passion is fire that reignites the light in the heart of the ancestors. Uncountable repressed desires, unfulfilled dreams, frustrated talents of our ancestors are manifested in the rebellious instincts of this black sheep seeking fulfillment. The genealogical tree, by inertia, will want to continue to maintain the castrated and the toxic force of its trunk, which makes the task of our sheep difficult and conflicting work. However, who would bring new flowers to our tree if it were not for them? Who would create new branches? Without them, the unfulfilled dreams of those who support you 10 generations ago would die buried beneath the lights. Let no one cause you to doubt. Take care of your rarity as in its precious found in the tree. You are the dream of all your ancestors. That's Bill King. That is real. So, Yes. Dear guys? Okay. I think I'm good. So let's bring it back. How do we apply all this knowledge? How can we heal humanity and the world? Well, the ironic good news about that is that the only people we can is ourselves. We can only heal ourselves. We can't heal anybody else. We can't do the healing for them. We can help people heal. We can set proper containers. We can offer help in our skills, but the work, they have to do it themselves. But we are vibration. So healing, think of it as a vibration. If we go in and heal the biological basis for our issues and who and what we are, the ancestral roots, and then we elevate our vibration, then we all know that that's going to elevate the vibration of our many minds. And then that's a ripple effect that will eventually can continue to that. Every time an individual heals, it helps heal everyone around them, sparking an exponential wave of positive energy that will ultimately change the course of man and civilization with enough time. So we have to start with the ancestors. Most of our traumas are not ours, they are our ancestors. So if we can heal our ancestors, we can heal ourselves. If we can heal our entire lineage, we can play with humanity. And God gave us the plans to carry out this imminent and important mission. I hope my life's work will eventually add credence to the role of spirituality, things, and healing with plant medicines. I feel in the coming years, we're going to see convergence of spirituality and science, where science actually proves spirituality. If experience the one. I'd like to finish with a quote from Tepoztlan. If you look deeply into the palm of your hand, you will see your parents and all your generations of your ancestors. All of them are alive in this moment. Each is present in your body. You are the continuation of each of these people. And Carl Jung famously said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Stanislav Grof, original pioneer of psychedelic research. The only revolution that will work is the inner transformation of every human being. And I don't know if Albert Einstein said this, but I love this quote. That's the frequency of the future that you want, and we're bound to get that future. There's no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. I do believe that's true. So with all that being said, I am hosting a microdose essentially workshop at 3. Seeing if you want to join that. Thursday ceremony, we're starting with the optional Tepoztlan, which is a sweat lodge, traditional way of starting it. A powerful experience on its own. So I arranged to have the Tepoztlan the one on Thursday. So seeing how this way as well. I got books for sale if anybody's interested there. And this is what we do at essentially on Treat Walks. If anybody is interested, come and see me or grab all my cards and come for some powerful healing. Visit your ancestors. This is our 2022 retreat video.
And then black.
I still like send us a Oh.
Thank you.
All right, that was pretty great. It was kind of hard to read the website for the retreats. Is it just a regular website / retreats?
Yeah, yeah, or just the regular website. Sittingbackmyline.com.
Yeah, then it's / retreats. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the cards. It's titleofbook.com.
And how much is your book?
300 pesos.
Okay, so if you want that book, I'm sure Michael Pollan sold plenty of books by now, so you can support this guy. Yeah, actually, I got relevant experience with some of this stuff. I did a transformational coaching with this thing called Being True to You, and I sat in on ceremony last week with combo, mushrooms, and bufo, which was wild, doing body work on people. And yeah, there's when I see it in my body work, releasing trauma, people are coughing things out. So that's definitely like what he was talking about was relevant to like the ancestral trauma, but actually people do cough their trauma out too.
Yeah.
In a literal sense, not just like with the the medical issue. And then a great book also on the note of what he's mentioning is Mark Kober. He wrote The End of Upside Down Thinking, and it breaks down the contrasting, conflicting beliefs between spirituality and like the metaphysical realm and like what people think is like science or whatever, and like how they don't jive together, and but also how like the military uses stuff like remote viewing and things to find like a downed Russian bomber in Brazil. So it's like all this stuff is actually documented, but like they don't accept it. They just like brush it off, even though it's being used. So, anyways, that's a good book. And yeah. And as for the stars, it's like the only stars I think they want us to see are like the douchebags in Hollywood that are all cannibal pedophiles, I guess, too. So, so yeah, I think that's part of it too, all the light pollution and things like that. So, and then Stamets, Paul Stamets, in this documentary called Fantastic Fungi, if anybody wants to know more about mushroom stuff and history, it's got a little bit of like liberal propaganda in there about climate change and like the war on terror and whatever, and germ theory. Yeah, so but it's only short patches. You'll get through it. But yeah, he talks about how he took like probably an ounce of shrooms and was in like a tree during a thunderstorm, and he stopped. He told himself to stop stuttering. It's a really crazy story. So, anyways, he programmed himself. So, kind of like another healing experience. And yeah, I don't know what you think about family constellation stuff.
I haven't dove into it. I love that poem, and that got me interested. I haven't really dove into it yet.
Yeah, I still haven't tried it yet either, but yeah, it seems like it's definitely similar. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, if you're not into mushrooms, we do that too. But you know, I don't know. I want to learn more too.
I had so I had a client who was in Afghanistan, Iraq, tours over there. Lost his hearing. He was up here being bombs. During our ceremony, boom.
Cool.
He went to help doctors everywhere. But
Yeah.
He gave up. And like a modern ceremony too. This is not like the crazy one.
Yeah, I mean, the body can heal itself if you push the right buttons. So, like with my reflexology paired with the trauma release or tension release that I do, I had a lady learn how to smell again, same day, smelling orange. Told that she could never breathe deep again after an accident and would never smell again. I'm just like, good luck. And I'm like, well, let's try. And yeah, so I'll tell you more about that later. I got to talk tomorrow. But yeah, so closing notes. He, I guess, mentioned he's got his thing today. Are you gonna like let people microdose sooner than later? Or if they're signed up. Yeah. Okay, I figured so. That makes sense. And yeah, they'll also be doing a psychedelic journey Thursday, and you gotta sign up for registration. So now we got our speaker, Dave Randall. He's an artist, creator of the Planet Doodah project. His passion is transforming the planet into the peaceful, harmonious, and utterly joyous place it was meant to be. And so his talk is how to manifest a post-Kabbalah reality. All right, give it up for Dave.
Thank you.